Hatem Qasem managed to create a state of terror in the streets of Baghdad, one of the most dangerous criminals and murderers. Because of him, the people of Baghdad in Iraq used to guard their homes themselves at night. He was a combination of psychological disorders with a criminal mind like no other. In 1932, the owner of the cleaver was born, whose real name was Hatem Qasem. He was nicknamed the owner of the cleaver due to his use of a cleaver in killing all his victims. But before we dive deep into the life story of one of the most notorious serial killers in Iraq, please don't hesitate to show your support for the channel by subscribing and pressing the like button. And also, before we dive into Hatem's case and details, let's explore first the reasons behind Hatem's transformation and his escalation to this level of violence. In 1951, Hatem graduated from his college and worked in the Iraqi police. However, after a relatively short period of time, he was fired due to his bad and inappropriate behaviors. After being fired from the police, Hatem decided to join the Air College, and during his studies, he engaged in numerous training sessions where students obtained airplanes. Hatem would often piloted these planes heading to unknown locations, resulting in his expulsion from the Air College. So, he moved to Kuwait and worked there for only 1 year, but by the end of this same year, he was fired once more from his job due to his inappropriate behaviors and unethical actions. So, he returned back to Iraq and worked as an accountant in a government entity, specifically the Department of Endowments. However, he was also fired from this position for embezzlement. Therefore, he was also imprisoned for 2 years because a case was filed against him on charges of embezzlement. After his release, he decided to travel to Europe, intending to start a different life from what he had lived before, but he went against this decision. He traveled to several European countries, including Austria, Belgium, Greece, and France, until he settled in Germany. There he began working in arms and cars smuggling, leading to a 10-month imprisonment. After his release, he decided to return back to Iraq, and he settled there. And here begins the story of the infamous serial killer, the owner of the cleaver. In 1970, after settling in Baghdad, he spent 3 years training and forming a gang consisting of his family members who assisted him. He assigned roles to each one of them. His gang included his brothers, Hazem and Ghalib, his mother Ahlam, his wife Sagda, his sister and her son Hussein. Hussein served as Hatem's personal assistant in all of his crimes. His wife Sagda played the role of heading to most of the houses they intended to rob a month before the burglary, and she would work within the households as a maid, gathering extensive information about the residents of the house and the location of the valuable holdings. This way, when Hatem and Hussein approached for the theft, they would have complete knowledge of the layout and also the sleeping schedules of the household members. And as for the rest of the gang members, their role was to sell the stolen goods to get the money. Hatem was eliminating all members of any targeted family to avoid exposure and potential arrest. His evil plan included killing every individual in any robbed household to prevent any witnesses that could lead to his identification. One of his tactics involved using the victim's own car to transport the stolen items after the burglary. Subsequently, he would abandon the vehicle in a remote and concealed location until it was coincidentally discovered by the police. His theft crimes began in 1973. Hatem's first victim was a Jewish man who was living alone in Baghdad. Hatem entered the house of this Jewish man and attacked him with his cleaver, causing his immediate death. Upon searching the house, Hatem was surprised to find that the Jewish man had no valuable items. Despite that, Hatem persisted in his killing and robbery crimes. And because all the crimes that was uncovered by the police involved victims who had killed through the perpetrator's use of a cleaver, Baghdad residents called this murderer Abu Tobar, which means in English the owner of the cleaver. This individual remained unknown to both the public and the police for a period of time. A state of terror and panic began spreading in the streets of Baghdad because the residents were unaware of the perpetrator's identity. Throughout the year of 1973, Hatem committed numerous crimes using the same method and the same steps without leaving any trace behind him. Hatem committed one of the most heinous crimes that occurred in Baghdad. Late this same year, Hatem decided to steal from the house of a police captain named Bashir Ahmed Salman. Hatem watched the captain's house for 11 hours until he was sure that all the captain's family members were asleep. Then he entered the house and killed them all with his cleaver. Not content with that, he also sexually assaulted the wife's corpse after killing her. The infamous owner of the cleaver gained even more notoriety in the streets of Baghdad as he targeted rich and important people, to the extent that other thieves stopped stealing during this period of time, fearing being accused of being the terrifying murderer, the owner of the cleaver. Afterwards, Hatem decided to rob a house that was only 200 meters away from the presidential palace in Baghdad. Hatem attacked the house, killing all its occupants by striking them on the head with his cleaver, including the maid. But fortunately, the maid didn't die because Hatem's strike wasn't strong enough to kill her. It only caused severe injuries, so she was transferred treatment for a significant period of time until she regained her strength. Police were able to identify the perpetrator for the first time of this series of crimes through the information provided by the maid. And here was the beginning of the end for Hatem. Hatem's crimes continued to the point where the residents of Baghdad started guarding their homes themselves every night, fearing the owner of the cleaver. The Iraqi government enlisted the help of the French police to arrest the owner of the cleaver, but they remained unable to uncover the identity of this murderer until mid-1974, when Hatem decided to rob the house of an Iraqi doctor living abroad. Hatem entered the house with the intention of theft only, without killing anyone. However, he was unaware of the doctor's personal guard inside the house, leading the guard to contact neighbors and police. This eventually resulted in surrounding the house and finally capturing Hatem. In the beginning, Hatem denied all the accusations leveled against him, including being the murderer with the cleaver. However, when the maid and the only witness who saw him on the day of the crime were summoned, she identified him, forcing Hatem to confess to all his previous crimes. The trial of Abu Tobar, or the owner of the cleaver, began publicly in front of all the residents of Iraq, putting an end to this nightmare for them. Hatem was sentenced to death, and in 1976, the execution was carried out, marking the conclusion of one of the biggest cases in Baghdad and Iraq as a whole. Thank you for watching, and if you liked the video, don't hesitate to subscribe. See ya in the next video.